Ever feel like life throws you curveballs? Like you're cruising along and bam, something happens that just totally throws you off.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it's those times, those really tough times when it's hard to, to keep your head above water that you wonder, how do you hold on to faith? I mean, if you have a faith, right? Like, how do you stay strong when everything feels like it's falling apart?
That's a really profound question, and it's one that I think so many people wrestle with, especially when life gets hard, right? It's a different thing to have faith when everything's going great versus when you're really facing some challenges.
Right, exactly. And that's actually what we're diving into today. We're exploring this whole idea of how faith holds up during difficult times, how we can even grow stronger.
Yeah.
And to do that, we've been looking at this piece. Um, it's called Faith, Strength in Hard Times from the Living the Mission podcast.
Oh, interesting.
We're going to kind of sift through it together, pull out those key takeaways, and figure out what it actually means for us, almost like a toolkit for our faith, when things get rough.
Love that. A toolkit. That's great.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. First, we're going to look at why, those tough times, those struggles, they're not actually a surprise
Right.
in a life of faith. They're kind of part of the deal. Then we'll talk about how to keep that faith strong, even when you feel like you're losing your grip. And of course, we can't forget about those encouraging words from the Bible, right? It's our
Yeah.
gold. And finally, we'll go over some real-world steps that you can take to stay spiritually strong no matter what life throws at you.
Sounds good.
All right, so this living the mission piece, it starts by asking, why are these tough times a part of being a Christian? It's not exactly what we signed up for all the time, is it?
Right, right. We often hope for a smooth ride.
Right.
But this source points us to a really powerful verse in John 16:33,
Oh, yeah, John 16:33.
where Jesus says, "In this world you will have trouble.
Oof.
But take heart, I have overcome the world." So right there, Jesus is acknowledging that difficulty is going to happen. That's just a part of life.
It's a given. Yeah, it's going to happen.
It's a given. But then he throws in this crucial element, this game changer. He says, "I have overcome the world." So even though there's trouble, there's also victory.
It's not about avoiding problems altogether. It's about knowing there's something bigger, a bigger win in the end, right?
Absolutely. It's like it shifts our perspective. It means that faith isn't about avoiding all the storms. It's about going through those storms with a different kind of confidence.
With that assurance that there's a reason and that there's going to be an outcome that is for good.
Exactly.
So this source, Living the Mission, it really emphasizes that, faith isn't a magic shield to keep away all the bad stuff. It's about trusting God in the middle of those tough times.
That's a great point. If our faith was only strong when everything was easy, well, how strong would it really be?
It would be kind of what do they call those plants? A hothouse flower or something?
Right, right. Exactly. It's in the challenges that we actually see what our faith is made of. It's tested. And that's how it grows stronger.
It's like refining gold in fire. So you're saying that, like, when we hit a rough patch, maybe instead of asking, where's God, we should be asking, what is God doing?
That is a brilliant way to put it. It's a shift in perspective, a shift from feeling abandoned to understanding that there might be something more going on, something bigger that we can't quite see yet.
And maybe it's not just about God doing something, but about Him using those experiences to, prepare us for something greater.
Right, exactly. Hard times, they can be like a training ground, shaping us for something we're meant to do, for a purpose we haven't discovered yet.
Okay, so we've got this idea that hard times, they're not a bug in this system of faith, they're a feature, right?
That's a great way to put it.
But what about when you're actually in the thick of it, when it feels like everything's falling apart? How do you keep believing that?
That's where a verse like Psalm 34:18 comes in. It says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." What really resonates with me about this verse is the promise that God is actually closest to us when we're at our lowest points.
That's interesting, because when you're going through something really tough, it can almost feel like God is distant, like, He's gone silent.
Oh, absolutely. And this source acknowledges that feeling, that sense of God's silence, but it reassures us that even when we don't feel him, he's still there.
So even when it feels like He's not answering, He is still there.
Yes, and it encourages us to hold on to God's promises, like those promises are solid. They don't change even when our feelings do. Our emotions can be all over the place, especially when we're stressed.
Yeah, so it's about choosing to believe what we know to be true about God, even if our feelings are telling us something different in that moment.
Right. It's like faith is a choice we make, especially when it's hard.
A conscious choice.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I like that. And this piece also talks about the importance of still doing those things. The practices like worship and prayer, even when they feel difficult or maybe even pointless in the moment.
Yes, even when you don't feel like it, showing up is important. It's like it's an act of trust in itself, you know?
Right. It's like, I'm going to do this even though I don't feel it right now because I know that it's what I'm supposed to do.
Exactly. And over time, it can actually make a difference. It's like, keeping up a routine even when you're feeling sick. It might not feel great in a moment, but it helps you to heal and get stronger over time.
That's a good analogy. So you're saying those practices, they're not just about how we feel, they're about like actively nurturing our faith even when it's hurting.
Exactly. And this source also emphasizes that, our pain has a purpose. God can use our suffering for good even if we can't see it at the time.
Yeah, that's a tough one, but I think it's an important reminder.
It's a really important point that our pain isn't wasted. God's working in it.
So far we've talked about why those hard times happen, and we've talked about the importance of like choosing faith over feelings. But this source, Faith, Strength, and Hard Times, it also gives us some really powerful verses from the Bible that can be like anchors for us, when things are rough.
Absolutely. Those verses, they're like lifelines in a storm.
Right.
One of the most powerful ones is from Isaiah 41:10. It says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you."
Oh, I love that one.
What's so amazing about this verse is that it's God himself speaking, promising his constant presence and his commitment to strengthen us, to help us when we're afraid.
And it's so direct, too. It's like a simple but powerful reminder. Don't be afraid. I'm here.
Exactly. And then there's Romans 8:28.
Romans 8:28. Yep.
And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him. Now, this verse gives us a wider view, assuring us that even in the messiness of life, God is working things out for our good, for those who love him. It doesn't mean that everything is good, but that God can bring good from everything.
That's an important distinction. It doesn't downplay the pain, but it points towards a hopeful future.
Right, exactly. And the last verse we'll look at is James 1:2-3.
Okay, James.
It says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance."
Pure joy, huh? That's a tough one to swallow sometimes.
It is. But the key here is understanding the purpose of these trials. They're not just random. They're meant to refine our faith, to make us more resilient.
So it's not about being happy about the tough times. It's about knowing that there's something good that can come out of them, even if we can't see it in the moment.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that long-term benefit that can emerge from those short-term challenges.
Like the bigger picture. Okay, I get it. And it's great that, the source points out that the Bible itself is like a weapon against doubt, right?
Absolutely.
When those negative thoughts start creeping in, we've got those truths right there to combat them.
Right. When we're feeling down or lost, reading those verses, meditating on them, it can really help to shift our perspective and remember what's true.
So we've covered why those tough times happen, where we've got those encouraging verses to hold on to. But what about, like, what can we actually do in our everyday lives to stay strong, spiritually when we feel like we're drowning?
Yeah, great question. And this source, it offers some really practical steps that we can take. One of the most important ones is to stay connected with the Bible, even when you don't feel like it.
Even when it feels like a chore.
Yes. Even then, it's like feeding our souls, Even if we're not hungry, our bodies still need food. And our spirits, they need the nourishment of God's word.
So it's not just about feeling inspired. It's about being disciplined, making that commitment.
Exactly. It's about showing up for ourselves, for our faith, even when it's hard.
Okay, makes sense. What else can we do?
Another important thing is to surround ourselves with people who get it, people who share our faith and can support us.
Oh, yeah. Community's huge.
Absolutely. It's especially crucial when you're going through a hard time. Having people to pray with you, to encourage you, to remind you of God's promises, it can make such a difference.
So we shouldn't isolate ourselves when things get tough, even though that's what we often want to do.
Yeah, it's tempting to withdraw, but that usually just makes things worse. Connecting with others, especially those who share our faith, can give us strength, and help us to see things from a different perspective.
That makes sense. And, this source also talks about the power of what we say, like choosing to speak words of faith and hope instead of words of fear and doubt.
Yeah, words have power, right? What we say to ourselves, it really shapes how we think and how we feel.
It's like if you keep telling yourself that you're going to fail, you're probably going to fail. But if you tell yourself that you can overcome, that you're strong, that can actually make a difference.
Exactly. It's about intentionally choosing to speak life into ourselves and into our situations.
So even when things are hard, we can choose to speak words of faith.
Yes, exactly. And another important thing that this source emphasizes is perseverance. It's about not giving up, keep believing, keep trusting, keep showing up in our faith, even when it feels really, really hard.
Keep going even when you want to quit.
Exactly. And it acknowledges that there might be resistance, like something trying to hold us down, to discourage us. But the call is to push through that, to press into our faith even harder.
Okay. So it's like we've got to actively resist those negative forces, those voices that are telling us to give up.
Exactly. And that actually brings us to the challenge that the Living the Mission podcast gives at the end of their piece.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
It's a challenge to take action, to identify one specific thing that we can do this week to deepen our trust in God, especially in the mid of whatever difficulties we're facing right now.
Okay, so something specific, something actionable.
Exactly. The source gives some really good examples, like spending more time in prayer, maybe even journaling those prayers.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Right. Or maybe starting a journal specifically to record God's promises and then, writing down your reflections on those promises.
Like how they apply to your situation. Yeah.
Exactly. Or even just making a conscious effort throughout the day to remember that God is with us, that he's faithful.
So even small things can make a difference.
Absolutely. It's about taking that step, whatever it is, to actively engage with our faith in a real way.
Okay, I like that. And the source ends with this powerful verse, 2 Corinthians 5:7.
Yeah, it says, "For we walk by faith, not by sight." And that really sums up everything we've been talking about, It's about learning to trust God even when we can't see the way forward, relying on his promises even when our circumstances seem to contradict them.
So to recap, today we've learned from Faith, Strength, and Hard Times that hard times, they're not a sign of weakness. They're an opportunity for growth, for refining our faith.
Right. And we're reminded that God is with us even when we feel alone, especially then, and that there are practical things we can do to build our resilience and get through those difficult times.
We don't have to figure everything out on our own.
That's right.
It's about trust, trusting God.
That's the key.
Yeah. So whatever you're going through right now, whatever storm you're facing, remember this: you're not alone.
You've got this.
Your faith, when it's tested, can become your greatest strength.
That's a beautiful thought.
It's not about seeing the entire path laid out before you. It's about trusting the one who does. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been great.
We hope